Hello and welcome to Transmission Samples. Today I'm going to be demonstrating polyrhythms and the differences between polyrhythms and polymeters. My reason for doing this is because of some tutorials or forum discussions I've seen have been confusing to follow because they are using the phrase polyrhythm but actually describing polymeters or vice versa. As well as describing the differences between polyrhythms and polymeters, I'll show you how to implement them in your tracks using a number of different techniques. I'm going to start with polymeters. This is essentially two different time signatures playing together, but one with an even number of beats to the bar and one with an odd number. For the first technique, I'll be using the Transmission Samples FlexiStep product to demonstrate a quick and simple way to implement polymeters, while giving you a good visual representation on how this technique fits into an arrangement. With this method, you're relying on the right loops to work together. So from the Transmission Samples dubstep pack, I'm going to choose a not too busy 4/4 timed drum beat. And a sparse rhythmical percussion to play on top. And this is the sound of the percussion in the same time signature. And this is what it would sound like, both loops playing together in 4/4 meter. I'm going to change the starting position of the percussion, so it might be easier to hear the starting point, but either way you would get a similar feel. I'm going to shorten the percussion by 1 beat, changing this to 3 beats per bar, fitting into a 3/4 or 6/8 time signature. You can see when arranging this track that the phrases won't repeat until bar 12. This makes it very easy to create something very interesting using a simple formula. So we've experimented with percussion style sounds. I'm going to try the same technique with musical loops. I'm going to use the live horn samples in this dubstep pack. First, I'm looking for a sustained type phrase to go as my 4/4 drum beat. And I'm going to match this with something more dynamic. Again, I'm going to change the loops to resolve over 3 beats instead of 4. But you can also change the loop to resolve on the 5th, 6th or 7th, which will give you a different polymeter feel. So I've showed you how to implement polymeters using audio loops. I'm now going to take it a step further and program a MIDI pattern using a 6/8 time signature within a 4/4 arrangement. I'm going to base this on a MIDI sequence very common within trance music. I'm going to create a simple 6/8 pattern. And as you can see, when I change the grids, the pattern of equal space notes repeat every bar in a 3/4 or 6/8 time signature. However, to make this more manageable, within a typical 4/4 arrangement, the phrase will normally be repeated every bar. So although it's not a strict polymeter, it lends itself to a polymeter technique. We are going to use the same theory, but without cutting the sequence at every bar, instead running the 6/8 meter sequence until bar 4. This will still give you a manageable sequence to work with a typical 4/4 arrangement. I can then use this same rhythmic pattern and add some melodic movement. I'm going to use the notes of the G scale with each note change fitting to a 4/4 arrangement. If I now play some bass notes, keeping to a 4/4 sequence, you can see how this formula really gives some interesting results. So I'm now going to give you an example of polyrhythms. Much like polymeters, a polyrhythm is using an odd number of equal space notes with an even number. However, the global time signature will remain the same. Polyrhythms can create an interesting rhythmical effect due to the swing feel it creates. This example shows 3, 5, and 7 equal space notes squeezed into a 4/4 bar. The pattern on top is a standard 4-beat pattern. A common technique I hear is alternating between an equal number of notes quantized to a polyrhythmic pattern. Because of the odd number of beats, an alternating pattern won't fall back in phrase with a 4-beat pattern until after bar 2. I'm going to use an influence from Philip Glass for this example, as this is probably one of my favourite uses of polyrhythms, and he makes good use of this alternating technique. The intro to Glassworks uses a simple on-beat 4/4 pattern using eighth notes as shown here. This is then offset with a 3-beat pattern or an eighth note triplet pattern. This sort of pattern can be achieved by setting the quantize to triplets. I have also converted this track to show polyrhythms 5/4 and 7/4. To get a 5 or 7 beat pattern, you will need to use the time stretch function to fit the desired number of beats to the bar, as I haven't seen any digital workstations which offer this type of quantize. This is the same pattern, but using the Poly Rhythm 5/4. And this is the Poly Rhythm 7/4. And then this is the original 3/4. So as you can hear, you get a similar melodic effect using the different polyrhythms due to the odd number of beats against an even number, but with a different swung feel depending on which polyrhythm you use.